There are ancient structures standing on this planet right now that our best engineers, with all of modern technology, cannot fully explain. And number one on this list will make you question everything you think you know about who built the ancient world. These aren't fringe claims buried in obscure forums. They are documented anomalies that mainstream archaeology has quietly set aside because no accepted theory fits them. Number 10 on this list sits in the Bolivian highlands, nearly 4,000 meters above sea level, on the southern shore of Lake Titicaca, Tiwanaku, a city that, by conservative archaeological estimates, was abandoned roughly 1,000 years before the Spanish ever set foot in South America. And yet the stonework left behind defies straightforward explanation. The site's most studied feature, the Pumapunku complex, contains H-shaped andesite blocks weighing up to 80 tons each, cut with such geometric precision that the internal angles are nearly perfect. Not approximately square, not close to level, measurably, documentably precise, in a way that modern stonecutters using diamond-tipped tools have called difficult to replicate. The anomaly isn't just the weight. Andesite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, ranking just below granite on the Mohs hardness scale. The nearest known quarry sits roughly 10 miles away, across terrain that includes a lake crossing. No accepted model fully accounts for how those blocks were transported, staged, and then finished to tolerances that look, under close examination, almost machined. Archaeologists have proposed copper tools, stone abrasives, and large labor forces, and those explanations are reasonable as far as they go. The problem is, they don't go far enough. The internal channels carved into some blocks are uniform in width to within fractions of a centimeter. That level of consistency, repeated across dozens of individual pieces, is the kind of thing that demands either an extraordinary explanation or a very uncomfortable silence. Mainstream science has largely chosen the silence. Number 9 moves us roughly 7,000 miles east to the coast of Japan, beneath roughly 27 meters of water off the island of Yonaguni. In the late 1980s, a dive instructor stumbled across what appeared to be a massive stepped structure. Flat terraces, sharp right angles, what looked like carved staircases sitting on the seafloor. The formation is roughly 150 meters wide and 27 meters tall, placing its base at a depth that would have been dry land during the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower than they are today. That detail matters. If the structure is natural, the timing is irrelevant. But if any part of it is shaped by human hands, it would predate every other known monument on Earth by a significant margin. No one has settled that question yet. That question, whether the ocean is hiding something older than civilization itself, doesn't get easier when you move to number 8. Number 8 is not underwater. It is sitting in plain sight on a plateau in southern Turkey, and it has been slowly dismantling the academic consensus on when organized human society began. Göbekli Tepe. The site was excavated seriously beginning in the 1990s, and what emerged from the soil was a ring of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some of them standing nearly 6 meters tall and weighing up to 10 tons each, arranged in precise circular enclosures and covered in detailed carved reliefs. Foxes, vultures, scorpions, abstract symbols, executed with a level of artistic intention that no one expected to find at this depth of the archaeological record. The carbon dating placed the oldest layers of the site at roughly 11,600 years before the present. That is older than the wheel, older than writing, older by several thousand years than the earliest known agricultural settlements. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were, by every model that existed before its discovery, supposed to be nomadic hunter-gatherers, groups too mobile and too small to coordinate the kind of sustained, organized labor that a structure like this demands. And yet, the structure is there, undeniably, measurably there. What makes Göbekli Tepe particularly difficult to absorb is that it appears to have been deliberately buried. The site was not abandoned and left to erode. Someone, the same people or their immediate descendants, backfilled the enclosures with rubble, sealing them intentionally. No one knows why. The burial is part of what preserved the carvings so well, which is almost a cruel irony. The act of hiding it is the reason we can see it so clearly now. Mainstream archaeology has revised its timeline for human civilization twice since the site was first properly dated. It may have to revise it again. Number 7 pulls us back to stone, back to weight, and back to the question of how, this time to the megalithic temples of Malta, a small island in the Mediterranean that contains, per square mile, more ancient stone structures than almost anywhere else on Earth. Göbekli Tepe was supposedly built by hunter-gatherers who had no business building anything. So, which anomaly hit harder for you? The precision at Pumapunku or the sheer age of Göbekli Tepe? Drop your answer in the comments below, because what's waiting at number 1 makes both of them look like a warm-up. Number 7 is where the weight of all this starts to feel personal. Malta is a small island, roughly 216 square kilometers, sitting in the middle of the Mediterranean between Sicily and North Africa. It is not a place you would expect to anchor one of the most concentrated collections of prehistoric stone architecture on Earth. And yet the Maltese temples, some of them dating back more than 5,000 years, are older than Stonehenge and older than the pyramids at Giza. The structures at Gantija, on the smaller island of Gozo, are among the oldest freestanding stone buildings ever identified, built from coralline limestone blocks that weigh, in some cases, more than 50 tons, moved and stacked by a population that, as far as the archaeological record shows, had no metal tools, no wheeled vehicles, and no draft animals on the island. The people who built Gantija were working with what they had. What they had apparently included an understanding of construction that we are still trying to reverse engineer. The internal layout of the temples follows a consistent pattern, a trefoil design, repeated across multiple sites, with chambers aligned in ways that suggest deliberate astronomical orientation. These were not shelters, they were not storage, they were built with intention, maintained over generations, and then, like Göbekli Tepe, abandoned. The reason, again, is unknown. What makes Malta specifically strange is the isolation. The engineering problem at Pumapunku involved moving stone across miles of difficult terrain. The engineering problem at Malta involves doing something similar on an island where the logistics of scale should have made it nearly impossible. And yet the structures stand, and the builders left no written record, no name, no explanation. Number 6 takes the mystery out of the Mediterranean and drops it into the Peruvian desert, but not at Pumapunku. This is the Nazca Lines, and the question they raise is not how they were built. It is why. The lines themselves are relatively simple to create. Remove the reddish surface stones, expose the lighter ground beneath, repeat at scale. The scale, though, is the problem. Some of the geoglyphs stretch for miles. The figures, a hummingbird, a spider, a condor, are drawn with single continuous lines so large that their full shape is only visible from the air. No one in the ancient world had aircraft. The Nazca Lines raise the why. But number 5 raises something quieter, and in some ways more unsettling. The how did they know? Number 5 is Sacsayhuaman, the massive fortress complex sitting above the city of Cusco in Peru, built by the Inca at an altitude of roughly 3,700 meters. The walls are constructed from limestone blocks, some of them weighing more than 100 tons, fitted together without mortar in a style archaeologists call polygonal masonry. Each stone is cut to an irregular shape, sometimes with a dozen or more faces, and then locked against its neighbors so precisely that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. Not a standard joint, not a flat surface pressed against another flat surface. Irregular, interlocking, multi-angled, and still, after centuries of Andean earthquakes that have leveled colonial Spanish buildings built right next to them, the Inca walls stand. The Spanish noticed this. Their own construction kept falling down. The Inca stonework did not. There is a dry, almost painful irony in the fact that the conquerors were watching the conquered people's buildings outlast their own, and the best explanation anyone has offered since is that the polygonal joints flex during seismic activity rather than shatter. That may be correct. What it doesn't explain is how a pre-industrial civilization, working without steel tools or written engineering manuals, arrived at a structural solution that modern seismic engineers would recognize as sophisticated. The knowledge had to come from somewhere. The record of where it came from does not exist. Number 4 brings the list back to Egypt, not to the pyramids, which will wait, but to something older and stranger, sitting a few kilometers to the west of Giza. The Osirion at Abydos is a subterranean stone chamber built from massive granite blocks, some weighing hundreds of tons, in a style that looks almost nothing like the decorative temples surrounding it. Egyptologists have noted that its construction style closely resembles the Valley Temple near the Sphinx, a structure now believed to be among the oldest in Egypt. The Osirian sits so far below the current ground level that it floods seasonally. It was discovered buried. The question of when it was actually built, and by whom, has never been cleanly resolved. The silence around the Osirian is the loudest kind. The silence around the Osirian points toward number 3, and number 3 is where the list stops feeling like a collection of anomalies and starts feeling like a pattern. The Baalbek complex in modern-day Lebanon contains the largest cut stones ever incorporated into a human construction. Not the largest stones ever quarried, the largest ever used. 3 of them, known collectively as the Trilithon, are each estimated to weigh roughly 800 tons, and they sit approximately 6 meters off the ground, fitted into a retaining wall with a precision that has baffled engineers since the 19th century, when Western scholars first began measuring them seriously. A 4th stone, still lying in a nearby quarry, is estimated at over 1,000 tons. It was never moved. No one has ever fully explained how the 3 that were moved got there, or what mechanism raised them to their current height. Roman engineers, who were among the most sophisticated builders in the ancient world, built their temple complex directly on top of this earlier foundation, suggesting that even they found it easier to inherit the platform than to replicate it. That detail is worth sitting with. The Romans, who built aqueducts spanning hundreds of miles and amphitheaters that held 50,000 people, looked at the Baalbek foundation stones and apparently decided, we will build on top of these, not instead of them. Which brings the list to number 2, the Great Pyramid of Giza, not as a curiosity, as a problem that gets harder the closer you look. The pyramid contains an estimated 2.3 million blocks, ranging from 2 tons to 80 tons each, assembled to a base alignment so precise that the 4 sides deviate from true cardinal north by a fraction of a single degree. The internal chambers are fitted with granite blocks weighing up to 70 tons, transported from Aswan, more than 500 miles away. Recent thermal scanning has revealed previously unknown voids inside the structure. We do not know what they are. We do not know what they were for. After more than 2 centuries of dedicated Egyptological study, the question of exactly how the pyramid was built, not approximately, not in general terms, but precisely at the tolerances it was actually built to, remains genuinely open. Both Baalbek and the Great Pyramid share something with every structure on this list. The physical evidence survived. The explanation did not. Subscribe for more and watch this one next. It's already waiting on your screen.